Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Wargaming. I'm your host, Dom Maidlow, also known as Dark Techno Dom from the Realspace Raiders Dracari podcast. I'm here with another tabletop legend, a 40k personality. You can find him on deploymentzone.tv and the podcast called The Conclave. An all-round great guy. This is QuipsterNerd. Hello, Quipster.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you very much. And I would like to start off by saying you have two of the most amazing painted armies that I have seen. And honestly, if none of you have seen Quipster's painting, I'm sure you have. He has all over Instagram got these amazing armies. So really go check him out on Instagram. But first off, I would like to know a bit about your painting. So out of the two like prominent armies that you have, which is the Imperial Fists and the Custodes, what is your favorite to paint?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be the Custodes because they are my pride and joy. They are my boys.
Yes.
So I think I'm kind of skipping a little bit ahead here, but I have a very similar story to most people getting back into the hobby. Played it as a kid. We can go into more detail later about that. And then as an adult, got back into it. And the big reason I got back into it is because I saw an advert for Games Workshop on like Facebook or something, and I was just like, "Oh, what are they up to?" And so looked on the website and found that Custodes were now a playable army, and I was like, "Yep, straight away, straight back in." I went to Games Workshop on Tottenham Court Road and dropped £500 immediately for a whole Custodes army, and never looked back. And yes, they are my boys. And so it's funny. The only reason I actually have any Space Marines at all, because I was very focused on, I want to be a Custodes player. I don't care about anything else. But then I started doing a bit of YouTube stuff with Liam Dempsey over at Deployment Zone. And one of the things that happened was in the early sort of Liam Dempsey days, there was Warhammer, which was his original YouTube channel. And there were a couple of us he sort of brought on board. And when the Space Marine supplements were coming out, the idea was like, okay, each one of us will take a supplement and paint an army for that supplement. So I think Brom obviously had his Ultramarines. One of the other guys picked Salamanders. And I was just like, well, you know what? I had done a testing day for contrast paints at a Badminton Cafe. And I tried the ironed in yellow on the back of an intercessor leg. And I was like, yep, that's it. Sold. I want an army of this. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll pick Imperial Fists. And my thinking was like, oh, I want the Imperial Fists to be my tabletop standard army, so I can just bust out a whole bunch of them, get them ready for YouTube. And it being me, that didn't happen. And I ended up painting them to a slightly higher standard than I was expecting to. And yeah, I've been painting them for the last year. I've got like a carpet of yellow in my case over there.
Oh wow, that's it. Yeah, I mean they really do pop, and I can imagine if you ever go play like I don't know, Badminton Cafe is one you just mentioned. That's just in London where like we're from, and I'm sure loads of people stop by and just have a look because they look amazing. Like the edge highlighting is on point, like the color. How do you get that like really like poppy yellow? Because I've really struggled. Like I've been painting Harlequins recently, and I've been trying to add a bit of yellow, trying to get them all bright and vibrant. Because my last time we've been in Dracari, they've all been very like dark and dingy, and trying to make it all vibrant is a challenge. Like the washes don't really work for me.
So with the yellow of the Imperial Fists, I get asked so many times how I do my yellow. It's actually become a meme on the Conclave. like they will say like before we go on air, like, oh, so how many people have asked you how you do your yellow? Like to the point where on Instagram I have a saved reply of like the steps to do my yellow when people ask for it.
Oh god.
But it's actually very simple and completely wrong. And if I were to start my Imperial Fist again, I wouldn't do it like this. But so basically, I thought, okay, Imperial Fist are going to be my contrast painted army. So it's Wraithbone undercoat, the spray. And then on top of that, just slap a bunch of ironed in yellow on top. And the ironed in yellow is really interesting because it's got this really nice orange color that goes into all the recesses. And I just thought, wow, that's really good because everyone else does all the recess shading with brown. And so it really stands out like that.
Yeah.
But ironed in yellow is absolutely terrible on flat panels and flat surfaces. It's like worse than any other contrast paint. Honestly, it's just bad. And so I was like, oh, I can't have an army like this. So what am I going to do about it? Now, luckily for me, the new design of the intercessors and all the Primaris stuff is such that they design it in a way that makes it easier to paint and edge highlight.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and so basically, when it comes to my Imperial Fists, I cheat. And so what I do is I only really pay attention to the bits that I know your eye looks at on a model. So the whole thing has iron. Like, imagine an intercessor in front of you. The whole thing's covered in ironed and yellow, and then the front of the greaves, so the leg armor, the knees, the sort of bits on the side, they're called tassets of the upper thigh, the shoulders, just the chest under the eagle, the head, and the top of the backpack. Those are the only bits that I go over in a different yellow. Everything else I just leave.
What? They look so good.
Yeah, but they look good because those are the only bits of the model your eye looks at when you look at a model.
Okay, I'm gonna go through Instagram now, and I'm
Yeah,
just gonna look at all the other bits.
I'll tell you what. Look at the hands. The hands are the worst.
Oh,
If you
really?
look at the hand, yeah. If you look at the hands and the arms, everything under the shoulder pad, there's pooling. It looks rubbish. There's no highlighting. Like, I actually only put highlights on those flat panels where I put that different yellow. And the reason, the yellow that I put on all the flat panels is Flash Gets yellow, which is an awful color, and no one should ever use it for anything except glazing. But basically, what I do is I do 3 very thin layers of Flash Gets yellow on all of those flat panels, and I edge highlight those flat panels with Screaming Skull. And what that does is it creates a lot of visual interest on the model because your eye has so much to take in, and it's also uniform and also clean that your brain just kind of goes, wow, that looks good, even though from a technical standpoint a lot of it isn't good. Your brain just kind of ignores those bits, and it's like really funny. I mean, one of the greatest secrets I tell friends when they're painting things for the first time is the most important part of a model when you're painting it is the face or the helmet.
Yeah, because your face is, you're just drawn to that. The first thing you look at a model, just being a human, you go straight to the center of the model, which is usually where the head is. And then, well, for me, I look at bases as well.
Yeah, exactly. So like, if you have an army with like decent basing and good helmets or faces, that army looks 100 times better than an extremely well edge highlighted army on the rest of the model. It's just the way your brain kind of takes information in. And I again, another thing that makes the army really stand out is the contrast, the levels of contrast. And by contrast, I mean specifically the difference between the light bits of the model and the dark bits of the model. So the Flash Gets yellow on all the flat panels. I don't highlight it with another yellow. I highlight it with Screaming Skull. And what it does is it really makes the model pop because it like really brings out those colors. And so that's the secret. And also, like, when you post stuff on Instagram, like, you just do all the settings so it actually like appears as it's supposed to.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, because I was really struggling with trying to get these Harlequins done, but the way to do it is to cheat and only do the faces and the bits they'll do. So, all right, I'll take that in consideration because there's just so many, like, because they're quite dynamically posed, they're just everywhere. I've been trying to be like, oh, I need to edge highlight this, edge highlight this, and I've been trying to do like, been trying a bit of Zenithal, tried that out, and then I actually like tended to go back and put more shadows in. So cool. Yeah, that's a good tip actually.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing with the Imperial Fists as well, because they were going to be my Imperial Fists and my tabletop standard army. That was the whole point of them.
Good though.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole point of them was that I skipped every single step I possibly could. So, for example, the metal on all of the guns have no highlights; they're just washed.
Oh,
Yeah, There's no highlighting on any of it. It's just what do I use? Iron Warriors, and ironically, Iron Warriors on all the metal bits, and then there's a non-oil wash, and I leave it, and that's it. Because realistically, who's looking at the gun barrel to see if it's highlighted? Who's looking at the ammo?
No,
Exactly.
I used to even drill the guns on some of my Chaos Space Marines where it was just a flat panel or you put a black at the end, you just drill it. No one actually cares. No one actually.
To be fair, actually, that's one thing I'm super panicky about. Like, I do drill all the gun barrels on literally everything.
Makes it look that little bit better then.
Yeah, it's the little finishing touches that do it. But if I was going proper tabletop standard, I wouldn't. To be honest, one of the things I was really worried about actually was when I was doing this scheme was vehicles, because I was thinking like, oh my god, how am I going to replicate this yellow on a tank? How am I going to use contrast paint here? And I found a secret. It was a tutorial by I want to say Goobertown Hobbies.
Okay.
And basically, what I ended up having to do was I got a really cheap crap airbrush from Amazon. Type of airbrush that's used for like cake decorating. And I was like, this will do. Sure, why not? And I got that. And what I did was I got Screamer Pink. And I put Screamer Pink. So I undercoated the whole model in Wraithbone. And I put Screamer Pink in all the shadows. And then over the top of that, I did Flash Gets Yellow over the whole model. Now, what that does is that once you put Flash Gets over the pink, it turns the places that are pink orange. So you have that shadow effect, just like the paint, and it works super well.
Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people talk about like airbrushing contrast paints, because it's really built for like just painting like on like Space Marines, getting all the crevices and really getting the shades you get from when you do contrast painting. But a lot of people have suggested to actually airbrush the contrast paints, and I haven't done my Harlequin's vehicles yet, but I've got them all primed and they're all ready in Wraithbone. But I was tempted to just either wash them or just like contrast paint the living bejesus out of them with the with the airbrush. And if it works for you, I'm sure I could get it to work for me, because
I was going to say, I'll tell you what, there's actually an even better option. And we talked about this just before we started, but someone I introduced to the hobby, it's very big on Instagram. She's got 26,000 followers now. And her name's Silver Paints on Instagram. She's done a couple of YouTube videos as well. And when I was introducing her to the hobby, obviously you show someone the website and you say, here are the options. And she was just like, those ones. I want those ones. And she was pointing directly at Harlequins.
Oh.
And I was just like, you want Harlequins to be your first army? And you can't say to someone, like, you should not do that. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to support your decision. That's completely cool. I think you should do this. And she's a better painter than me now. And that was 8 months ago she started.
Wow.
She's insanely good. But the reason why she's so good is because, one, she isn't afraid to take chances. And she's pulling techniques from other hobbies. So there's this interesting little like swirl pattern she does. She's got a tutorial for it. I think it's on her YouTube. And this swirl pattern it looks like a galaxy map. And so I would suggest, actually, if you're going to do anything with Harlequins, they are absolutely ripe for that kind of freehand, because it takes literally like 2 minutes to do a bike.
Is that it?
And you're yeah, is that it? Honestly, that is it.
Oh no.
And it's all those like little simple techniques that look super impressive, but when you're actually doing them, you're just like, oh, this took literally 1 minute and required some blobs of paint and
zero skill.
Yeah,
well,
literally.
Perfect for me then. I've got zero painting skill, so I'm just going to do that then.
Amazing. I mean, to be fair, when it comes to painting skills, I always give people 2 bits of advice, if you'd like to hear them.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first one is brushes. 100% always get good brushes. I personally use, and this isn't sponsored or anything, although they did send me a bunch of stuff a while ago. Artis Opus Series S. Fantastic brushes, and they leveled up my painting immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like the difference between like you're not watching Usain Bolt run the 100 meters barefoot, are you? Like he's using good shoes and he's
Yeah.
using good like specific shoes. It's the same thing with painting. Like the tools do matter. So good brushes is definitely part of it. And then the next one is patience. Like if you really want to improve your painting, be patient and be deliberate. Like don't just slap on the paint. Like think, what am I trying to achieve? And like I take this to a little bit of an extreme, because like with my Custodes, for example, I have a like right next to me. I've actually got three bikes, three of the jet bikes on the go, and I've sub-assembled all of them, and I will be happy with myself if I spend an entire evening painting what, like some shoulder pads.
What?
Yeah, it's
That's
like
alien to me.
yeah, that is like an extreme, but that's the kind of way you have to think about it. Like if you want to paint good, it just takes more time. And that's why I always say I don't think there are any bad painters. I think there are just painters with different goals.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the time I'm getting like models ready for like an event, not to like show off,
Exactly.
like being like, oh, I'm going to a painting event. No, this is like competitive 40K. I just paint stuff as quick as I can, or not quick as I can. Like I do take my time. Like I painted a solitaire the other day, and I took like maybe 2 hours on him, which is great for me. But like all my Jakara is just like washes and then highlights afterwards. But it usually didn't stay on the painting table long for when I need to get to the event, because the message just shifts so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're probably right, and just I do need better brushes, because I tried the new range of Games Workshop brushes, which are the white ones, and they're supposed to not break as much, and they are really good. And I go through like brushes like there's no tomorrow, and it's almost like every birthday and Christmas I'm just getting new brushes, and they're already broken by the time the birthday comes around. And the get new Games Workshop brushes, I can't even remember what they're called, but the white ones with the white,
the STC ones. Yeah.
they're actually worth it. I 100%. I bought one thinking, oh, let's try it out, let's see how it goes, because I didn't want to buy like 5 or 6 and then like they all just break on me. But I actually fully recommend them. Like for me,
Yeah,
but
100%. I
thought
mean,
great.
this is the thing. I have my really good brushes, and my good brushes I use for edge highlighting, blending, glazing, all the sort of like more detail, bit more complicated stuff. But I've also got a whole bunch of really crap like synthetic brushes and some of those Games Workshop brushes, which are actually quite cheap. And I just use base coat. I just throw base coats on with them
Yeah,
because they're big, they're hardy, and I don't really care that much about them because they were super cheap.
yeah.
So yeah, it's about the right tool for the right job. Absolutely.
Yeah. So talking about you mentioned Custodes just a second ago. How did you find painting them? And there's a lot of people who are kind of like getting into Custodes recently, more for like the meta and how things are changing, and also they're probably the cheapest army to collect if you want to just go straight in for just like model count, because there's not many of them. Got any tips for people who are like relatively new to painting Custodes? And yeah.
So Custodes are a really interesting army because they can be the quickest army to paint in Warhammer, full stop.
Gold, none oil, done.
I mean, yeah, although actually, the trick I use is gold Agrax, and then a dry brush of Auric armor, which is I think looks really good. But yeah, they can be super super quick to paint, or you could paint them like me and spend 2 months painting 6 Terminators.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they look
because
great. That's the
thank you,
thing.
thank you. But it's funny. I tell people that, and they're just like they can't fathom it because they're like, "What the hell were you doing this whole time?" And I'm like, "Right, okay." The bases that they're on have individual tiles, which I have base washed and individually highlighted, and then I counted this like if you put all of those 6 models together, there are 160 gems,
That's a lot of gems.
which I painted individually, including the gems on their knuckles.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Custodes. there's so many levels. You can either go to that extreme or you can just do a quick dry brush. Either is like totally fine. But I think Custodes really lend themselves to like actually to almost either extreme. It's really easy to just do the quick base, wash, dry brush, and then paint a few details. The thing I will always say, though, with everything that you paint, focus on the head.
Yeah.
Like, you can have the rest of the model look crap, but if you painted the eyes well, if you painted the face well, it really makes a model pop. That's absolutely what I would say.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure like bases and faces that could be the new motto of this.
Faces and faces. That's it. I love it.
If anyone just takes anything from this episode, just bases and faces, all you need.
Yeah.
So going on to Custodes. So tell me about your army. Like, do you like? I know from listening to the Conclave podcast that you're very like lore driven in the way that you kind of like approach the hobby and like the way you approach like when you do narrative play and all this sort of stuff. So just tell us about your Custodes.
So the Custodes sort of as a faction are a really interesting one because they are so new. They've only ever had one codex. Whereas if you look at, Space Marines, for example, like I'm building my Imperial Fists based on the Imperial Fist 5th Company. And you can look in the Imperial Fist Codex, the 8th Edition Codex, and the 9th Edition Codex, and get basically a breakdown of what is in a Primaris Space Marine company. It's got 20 squads. They have this many battle line. They have this many of this many of this, one captain, etc. A lot of that doesn't really exist for Custodes right now.
Yeah.
They haven't built up those layers of like minutia, nitty gritty lore yet. And so a lot of it you can look at as like having a lot of freedom. Or you can look at it like, oh my God, I've got too much freedom. What am I going to do with this? From a narrative perspective. And so what I did was I went back to the lore. And I mean, my first decision was, am I going to paint these gold or am I going to paint these a different scheme? And I honestly agonized over that for about a week. And I was just like, oh God, what am I going to do with this? And eventually I was like, you know what? These Shadow Keepers, they look fantastic. I'm going to go unique. So I did a variation on the Shadow Keeper scheme. So it's the black, the purple, and the gold, for those who haven't seen this yet. And purple is actually my favorite color. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to get some purple in there. So they've got purple robes and purple plumes. And so I look back on the Custodes lore and I realized that each custodian is an individual hero in his own right. And you're only ever going to have like 20, 25 on the table at absolute most. A normal army can have like 18 models in it.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, right, okay, I want these guys to be unique as possible. And I'm going to really spend some time on these guys because, painting is probably one of my favorite parts of the hobby. I really like just sitting down and listening to a podcast like the Realspace Raiders or, anything like that. And so, it's part of like my main hobby. And so I was like, right, I'm really gonna get into the details of this. And so what I did was I built the army box by box. I didn't really pay that much attention to what was meta and what was good. I think it was quite freeing in a lot of ways because Custodians were not that good in the 8th edition and the beginning of 9th. So I didn't have like any constraints that way. I wasn't building towards a meta build, which is how I ended up with 9 Alaris Terminators.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And so, I was just like, okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, each one's going to be individual here. I'm going to spend lots of time. And what I did was, I'm going to do a bit of a name drop here. There's a company out there called Versatile Terrain. And what they do is
I've heard of them.
Yeah, you would have done. So Versatile Terrain have these 3D printed nameplates.
That's it.
That's the one. And so I went on Reddit and I was just like, hey, and I saw someone had one. And I was like, oh, where did you get that from? He said, oh, Versatile Terrain. And I was just like, yep, I am sorted. So I was just like, right, every single one of my Custodians is getting a name. Now, the Custodes, the way that they get their names is as a Custodian, lives and does stuff, he will earn names based on his deeds, and that will just continue on until like they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of names. And it's actually a way of protecting themselves against demons, because to know the true name of something is to have power over it in the 40k universe. And so if your name is like really, really fucking long, it's a bit of a defense. And so basically, I realized that the Custodes recruit traditionally. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the police car outside. People are doing nefarious things. But so the Custodes, the whole point about them is that they recruit from all of the noble families on Terra. And that in the early days of the Imperium was the Emperor basically protecting the early Imperium against these big noble families, these big rich families, because it was like, yeah, you can fight me if you want, but all of your sons are my bodyguards. So what are you gonna do?
What you got?
Yeah, exactly. And then it became an honor to have a child taken away to join the Custodes. Incidentally, I have to say, it is actually pronounced Custodes, not Custodes, and I really hate when people like get it wrong. It's like, and there's going to be some people out there who are going to be like, actually, you can pronounce it any way you want. No. There is a pronunciation guide that came out in a White Dwarf, and it is pronounced Custodes.
I like Custodes, but I also like calling them Custodes. So
I mean, that's fine. A nickname I can do, but like actually, when people say Custodes, I'm just like, no, there's a bit in me that gets frustrated. But yeah, so the Custodes, they recruit from these noble families all over Terra, and so I realized, okay, they take their names from ancient gods, devils, monsters, philosophers, etc., based on their deeds, and they recruit from all over Terra, so they would get those names from ancient cultures all over Earth. And so I spent so long. I have a spreadsheet in my Google Drive that's full of ancient god, devil, and like whatever names. And
Zeus.
yeah, I think Zeus is in there. I haven't used that name yet because I have like the list of unused names and then the used names column.
Oh yeah.
And like basically what I try and do is every unit or every type of unit I try and theme. So for example, my jet bikes. My jet bikes, one of them is called Garuda. And he is named Garuda because Garuda is the I think it's like a type of Malaysian firebird. It's a bit like a phoenix.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Exactly. And so I thought, okay, it flies, it's a bird, it's powerful, jet bike. That's a jet bike name.
That's cool. That is really cool. I like that. I like how you're like making it like come together with all like you go into you're not just putting like your favorite like black metal album out and then like, that's what it's called because like for mine the only bit of like lore thing I did was for when we did it for the Realspace Raiders podcast when we named our factions and we had Paulie who already had his Sky Serpent, so I named mine after like my favorite Mastodon albums. So that's literally there's like a whole speech thing that I have, and it's just like a sentence and it's like insert names of all the albums just to make it cool. But yeah, I like it. It's cool.
That's awesome. I love your idea as well. I love that kind of personalization that people get into armies. But it's like with my Custodes as well. Sorry, let's just cut off your story there. But with my Custodes as well. One thing that was always really important to me, and I actually do this with my Imperial Fists, is it's very, very easy in pretty much all Warhammer naming conventions to get stuck in the everything gets Greco-Roman names kind of trope.
Yeah.
And to me, it's been done to death. Everyone's done it. And I was just like, I specifically don't want that. So I spent a lot of time researching names from all kinds of cultures. There's some Mongolian ghost names in there. I was looking stuff up for Kiev and Rus. So like ancient Russia. There's some Chinese names in there. What else? There's Japanese as well. There was some Native American names. One of my Terminators is called Amarok, which is the Inuit name for their wolf god, essentially.
Oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, and so I love this kind of stuff.
It because they're like living gods themselves on the battlefield. Like when they send reinforcements, the one will turn up, and that is enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually I had this conversation with my buddy Ed, the Sandman, on the Conclave. And we were talking about like how bad would because he collects Gene Stealer cults. It'd be like, how bad would a Gene Stealer cult uprising have to be for the Custodes to turn up?
Yeah.
Because like the escalation there is like, oh no, it's really bad. Call the Astra Militarum. Oh no, it's really bad. Call the Space Marines. At what point do people think, now we're going to need the Custodes? Like, what
Oh my
possibly could
God.
happen for them to be like, we need help?
Oh my God, yeah. It's like they okay, cool. They've got the nuke codes, or like, oh cool, yeah, they've got themselves into a warlord titan. They haven't turned it on yet. Bring the boys down. Let's sort this out.
Oh my
God.
God. But I mean, the other thing I was going to say when it comes to naming conventions, sort of like taking a bit of a tangent, I did the exact same thing with my Imperial Fists. It's actually funny. I literally last week got all of the nameplates for my Imperial Fist turn up.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
oh God, it's so good. I can't wait to put them on. But basically, um, you know how with Space Marines, the squads of 10, they can combat squads, so you get 2 squads of 5.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things that I was always interested about is who's leading the other 5 guys, like the other 4 guys, because you got the
Yeah.
sergeant on one side, and then who's in the other side. And so I was like, right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have every single squad that can combat squad is going to have a sergeant with the red helmet,
Yeah.
and a veteran with the white helmet, and he's
Oh,
the
that
guy who
makes
leads
sense.
the other half.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I was like, okay, who in the army gets names? And I was like, well, I'm not going to do everyone because that's a custodian thing, and that's a lot of
That's a
nameplates.
lot of names. That's a lot of names.
Uh, exactly. So I was like, okay, everyone with a character keyword, obviously, and then all the veterans and all the sergeants. So
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, so all my sergeants, all my veterans have names, and then I was thinking to myself, okay, what names do I want? And so I realized with these guys, the Imperial Fists recruit from everywhere.
Mm.
Like they have planets that they recruit from. So Necromunda is one of them. They recruit from Inwit, they recruit from Terra, and they have like loads of different worlds they recruit from because they're actually, it says that they're based on Earth, but technically speaking, they're actually more of a fleet-based chapter.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so I was just like, right, so these guys in this chapter would have names from everywhere. So I started looking at names from everywhere. So in my, like for example, one of my captains is named Han Xin, which is the name of an ancient Chinese general who's like
Oh wow.
massively impressive commander.
Mm.
Uh, I've got Egyptian names in there. I've got African names in there. I've got Native American names, Indian names, Arabic names. Because you know these guys, they would have names from all kinds of naming
Yeah, they
conventions, and
would.
so
They would. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I couldn't just do like the Greco-Roman thing again. I wanted to make it a lot more interesting. And amusingly, I was looking for a Middle Eastern name, and I suddenly realized, hang on a sec, I've got a Warhammer friend who's got a Middle Eastern name. I can just put him in this army. So
Oh, that's
there is, I think it's my Phobos captain is called Kareem Abu Sir.
very nice. Very nice. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. No, yeah. So I really like the idea of all these like naming. Like, I mean, it's cool that you're getting a friend in then, and you're going really into like the history and of like ancient generals and that. Have you ever thought about doing like a Death Watch army? Because then you could really go like turbo nerd on everything. Because like they have the individual chapters they've come from, and then that's where you can get their names from. If they're a psyker, how did they get it? If they got a blade, where did they get this Xenos blade from? You get from a lore perspective, you
Oh,
just go to town.
dude, I'm way ahead of you there. So I don't think I really talked about this yet. So I've got the spreadsheet of names, but I also have the spreadsheet of deeds. So
Uh,
basically, I have this spreadsheet. And I've got a picture of every single model in the army because there's not that many in the for the Custodes, and underneath the picture, it's got a box that says where the name is from. So
Mhm.
Amarok, it would have like the thing, or Xerxes or whatever. And then underneath that, it's got a list of deeds that model has performed that were really impressive on the tabletop.
Oh, that's cool. Like killing an Archon or something like that.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
the one that comes to mind is Xerxes. Actually, he once made, I think it was like an 8-inch charge onto an objective, killed a Chaos Sorcerer by himself, and that like won me the game because I got
Oh
the final
wow.
objective and killed the character. And I was just like, yes, that's going in your roll of honor. That is happening. Or like another one where I had one of my, and this was 8th edition. I had one of my guardians. I think it was Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
So named after the ship from the Matrix and the ancient Babylonian king.
Very cool.
Yeah. And he was standing in front of one of my characters, and I was playing Grey Knights at the time.
Mm.
And I was just like, right, okay, if he dies, then my character is now targetable. And it's the beginning of the shooting phase, and he's got 2 Land Raiders and like 3 Dread Knights.
Yeah.
He tanked every single shot from an entire Grey Knight army. I just made the 4 up every single time.
Wow.
And I was just like,
was
protected his shield captain against an entire Grey Knight shooting phase. That's going in the roll of honor.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I love stuff like that when that happens. And I kind of wish, like, last year when I was going to my events, I kind of like made little notes after like every like cool little thing, because I think one of the most memorable for me that happened last year, one of my models, was I was playing at the London Grand Tournament, and I was playing like 1,000 Suns player, and it wasn't a big deal because it was what I basically said was, you know, Drazar, he's just going to make a 12. I'll just make a 12-inch charge because I've got no more other charges to make. And I was like, oh, just do your dreadnought over there. I rolled the 12-inch charge, got it, and it was like a 35-point swing by the end of the game because I made because what I did, I killed his to the last, then I killed, because then his psychers tried to get in because I was on his point. So it was priority target. I got his priority target, killed his to the last, killed 3 psychers in the next turns that were around him. I failed to mortal wound him to death. Then like it was just so many stacks and stacks, but it was just a yellow. I nearly didn't do it. I was just like, oh, I'll just make a 12-inch charge. And then me and him looked at each other like,
oh my god,
something's gonna happen now. So like there were multiple moments like that during the season. I wish I could make a note. Maybe like this Saturday coming, which is Saturday after this podcast comes out, will be would have been my first event of the season. So do you know what? For you, I'm gonna make a note of all the fun things that happen in the event, and I'll make sure I write it down, because I like the aspects of that, because I've got like, I probably say it every episode on this podcast, but like I have like a million points of chaos, and when I used to not play competitively and play at my local club, I used to like upgrade certain characters to like champions, but like physically break their arms off and then give them like better shoulder pads, and I would upgrade them. I was really into the lore of it, so I do love all of this stuff that you're doing with the Custodes, because it is really cool. And you know, I get it, like it's fun. You got your painting, you got your gaming, and then you've also got the lore that you're interested in. Also, you're keeping track of all of these like amazing like individual tanks, the Custodes that they are, what they're doing on the battlefield, and it's really cool. Really, really cool.
Thank you. I try.
Yeah, yeah. So, talking about Custodes, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know, kind of like your, like, not interpretation, but your views on everything in the new book. I've just got a few questions now about like your time in the sun. It has arrived, and a lot of people
Oh
are
yeah.
either really happy because it's not Drakari anymore, and I'm sad about that. But a lot of people are like, you know, thinking like maybe Custodes are way too powerful. So with the new book, like, what was your first impressions when you like opened it up and you kind of really sunk your teeth in?
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a bit of a secret here. So I have a few friends who are YouTubers and content creators who got the books early.
Yeah.
And you know, they signed NDAs and all this kind of stuff. And you know, before people really, you know, got their teeth into it, so like release day weekend, we were talking to each other. Like, people had just got the books and they'd had it to look at for a little bit, and we were chatting, and none of us thought much of it. Like, genuinely, Yeah, every single one of us was just like, I don't rate the Custodes. I think they're going to get blown off the table. They don't have the damage output. Like, I don't see them being top tier at all.
Mm.
Lo and behold, a week and a half later, 70% win rate across every competition, absolutely smashing every single other codex.
Yeah.
Like, it's honest, it blows my mind. And I've looked into it a little bit, and you said earlier, like, oh yeah, what rules and stuff would you change? I have some very controversial opinions about the Custodes Codex, and it's going to be interesting hearing the bit of the backlash from what I'm about to say. But Custodes from the last codex of this one are much better in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction of the Catters, it's a nice little bonus. I like the little interesting mechanic turn by turn.
It's quite cool.
It's quite cool. I don't think it's that powerful. It's just like a nice add-on.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with the codex at the moment is points, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
Bikes
agree.
need to go up by 15 points, and Trajan needs to go up by about 30. That's what I
Interesting
would
to
say.
say 15 because when I look at the points, because I when I think about it, I'm thinking about spammable units, and the one that everyone's spamming at the moment is the
Bikes.
bikes. And I thought a
Yeah.
10-point upgrade would have been fun because then you're losing 90
Yeah.
points of your list really, but 15
Yeah.
that's quite a hike.
Well, okay, 10 to 15, I would say is really good. It puts them in a much better position because you then have to sacrifice something in the list,
Yeah.
basically. And the thing I would say is the big reason why Custodes are doing so well at the moment is because they play the mission so well. It's
Yes.
not for any other reason, really. If you look at, a lot of the lists that are out there at the moment, this is just my opinion, but I actually think Custodes do lack a bit of damage potential. Like,
Interesting.
because the attacks characteristic of everything in the army has gone up by 1 only for characters.
Yeah.
Certain things like bikes have gained an extra wound, which is great. But once you see those points increases, Custodes are basically very well balanced.
Yeah.
But their Custodians are going to have the same problem that they had in 8th, in that the codex is extremely internally well balanced, but there won't be any particular unit that stands out and makes them competitive. Right now, you're seeing every single competitive list out there that's bikes, 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 bikes.
9
It's
bikes.
3 squads. It's 3 squads of 3 bikes, and that's the only reason they're winning. Now, what happens if you have to reduce that to 2? You will see a lot more Custodes players losing, and there's nothing in the list that comes close to them. So, in my opinion, everything in the codex, all the things that don't currently have an extra attack from the last codex need an extra attack. So that's bikes, that's wardens. Wardens, they've got the bodyguard rule, which is great, but you're not really going to see them. You're not seeing the blade champion anywhere, despite the fact that it's a fantastic unit.
Yeah, because he's really good because he gets double attacks or something when he does like his other fight stance or whatever it is.
Exactly, he's fantastic.
Yeah,
but you're not seeing him anywhere because there's greater utility from other stuff. So yeah, bikes need to go up in points just to allow room for other options to like have their time in the sun. But the damage output from Custodes just isn't there. It's just, especially compared to other armies. Like everything in the army needs that extra attack, and then I think it's in a perfect position. But I mean, I think once Custodes do get those points increases, which I'm 100% certain that we will, I'm sure, see. I can't like speak to that. I have no experience with that. But yeah, once we see that kind of stuff happen, then I think, we will see.
There'll
I
be a
think there'll be
balance
very
in
interesting.
force. That's what I think. But look, so from my perspective, I think there's 2 things that are kind of like wrong with. It's necessarily not wrong with the codex. It's more like a wording thing, because a lot of stratagems now are cheap as chips. They're 1 CP, and you can make your units like no rerolls or transhuman, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that's the reason why you're seeing 3 bikes, 3 bikes, 3 bikes, because it's under a certain amount of models, then they are 1 CP for some of the strats. if you just changed the wording of that, rather than saying below certain models, you just change it but bikes are 2 CP. Because that's what happens in the Drukhari Codex, where you go, this, like, we have a reroll wound stratagem, which is like, it's for Grotesque and Talos, all that sort of stuff is 2 CP, but for Rax it's 1 CP. So it doesn't change the rule, only like, because you would hate it to have a knock-on effect to the units that don't really rely on it, but when it comes up, when you just like 1 CP on your better troops to transhuman, all that sort of stuff, you wouldn't want to see that become 2, because they haven't been the oppressive unit. What you would really want is is it's changed to like bikes and bike captains, or anything who on those bikes. It costs a bit more, because then I think it kind of balances it out still, because still with your really meta units, you'll have it being more expensive. And I think that's a good move. And also I think that I do think, like you are saying, like the bikes should go up, but I kind of think like they should maybe think about just really looking into like how Trajan is used on the board, and then not obliterate him so he doesn't come in the army. But I also think they should make it so that he is just not an auto take.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anything should be an auto take. I honestly really like everything Trajan does. I think he's really good, really thematic. He's almost exactly as much of a powerhouse as you'd want him to be. I think I might have given him a sweep attack as well, but that's just me. But yeah, no, when it comes to all that kind of stuff, yeah, I would love to see people play more Blade Champions, honestly.
Dynamic pose model as well. It's almost like a Harlequin the way he's running. It's really cool. It's really
beautiful model, and the rules for it are fantastic. Like I really desperately want to see more of those. I think that's my big thing. I just want to see more of the Codex on the table, like doing things.
Yeah, that makes sense. So moving on. So tips for everyone that's kind of not used to playing Custodes but heard of the boogeyman that's on the tournament scene at the moment. How'd you beat
them? Okay, so there are two answers to this. So you are either going to be facing Shadow Keepers or Empress Chosen. The big thing with Empress Chosen is they are basically immune to mortal wounds because it's a 4-up, feel no pain. And with Shadow Keepers are -1 attack incoming and reroll wounds on characters. They are the character killers. There's a lot of utility there. So with Shadow Keepers, mortal wounds will kill them, full stop. Empress Chosen and Shadow Keepers, AP -2 weapons, and lots of them.
That's the sweet spot. AP -2.
That's the sweet spot. Okay. Yeah, doesn't really matter the damage. You just need lots of them. Anything AP -2, if you've got enough of it, you'll just kill Custodes. Like, they will fail the 4-ups. That's it.
Eventually.
Like, yeah, honestly, like if you can get first turn and get like 100 bolter shots into a Custodes army in like tactical doctrine, you'll win. Like, that's it.
So you're saying Imperial Fists are the way to go. That's the counter right there.
That's the counter. No, I mean, like, Tau, fantastic. Or anything that ignores invulnerable saves. Again, you'll win. So, like, I've seen Chaos Demon lists do very well against Custodes, especially with a lot of Spanish shenanigans. Be'lakor as well. But they're... Oh, God. I remember I was actually at LGT as well. And my last opponent was a Slanesh Demons player, and oh my god, the shenanigans! Like, he had a way of reducing the number of attacks each model had by 2.
Wow!
So
wow!
Yeah,
1 attack in combat.
1 attack per custodian, and obviously there's not many custodians.
Jesus!
Yep. This
wow!
damage at the time as well. Just like, great, this is awesome. And I didn't have many bikes, and I got tar pitted by all the little things, and then had 3 greater demons in my face immediately.
Oh jeez, that does
including
horrific.
Yeah, it was not. Actually, this is kind of a sportsmanship issue now. The guy who did that to me, he was just like, oh yeah, I play Custodes all the time. Like I know this army really well. And then he started making mistakes. Like bikes are toughness 5, aren't they? I'm like, no. You've boasted about this. Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't get your rules wrong, especially. God.
Yeah.
Right. So we're coming down to the last like 10 or so minutes of this episode, and we've spoken a lot about painting and your beloved Custodes, and I've just got a few fun questions to kind of end it, which is really
Okay, hit me.
sad to end it, but it's been very nice having you on here. So if you could change the rule of a single unit, what would it be? And you can choose any army you would like, but as we're speaking Custodes, you can do that as well.
This is really interesting. I think I'd give Trajan the sweep attack, which is a boring answer, but I just kind of want that to happen.
Yeah, it would be really cool because I don't know why. I don't imagine him being graceful whilst doing it, just like waving it above his head, which would be hilarious. But yeah, if someone was to get into Custodes, what book should they start with, and why should they start with that book?
Got so many opinions here. So, when it comes to Custodes, you want to start with. There's two places. Either you start in 30k with the Horus Heresy, or you start in 40k. If you're going to start in 40k, you start with Watchers of the Throne. Now, the guy who wrote that, whose name escapes me at the moment, which is really annoying because he's one of my favorite authors, he just gets Custodes, because the thing a lot of people, I think, when they write about Custodes, don't quite understand or don't quite embody in their writing is that Custodes are weird. Like, the thing that makes them interesting isn't how heroic they are or like how much of everything they have. It's what they're missing.
Okay.
Like, that's the thing that makes them super interesting, because they've had certain parts of their humanity stripped out so that their entire sole focus of their entire being is protecting the person of the emperor, like literally him. And they don't, like, the Custodes actually aren't even really technically part of the Imperium. The only reason they do things for the Imperium is because they know it will protect the emperor.
Yeah.
So it's a very different perspective. And to actually read about that and understand it is fascinating. And so, yeah, Watchers of the Throne, absolutely fantastic book. That's where I would start.
Great. I think I might. I haven't actually read that one, so I might give that a go.
So good.
Okay, so if you could have a new unit added to the Games Workshop Custodes line, not Forge World line, because they've got a lot of Forge World, what would you add?
Constantine Valdor.
Reason?
So I would add Constantine Valdor because it'd be really cool, basically. No, like, it would either be Constantine Valdor or it would be a flyer or a dreadnought or something like that, basically. Because, like, I just want Custodes to have more stuff.
I do as well. I that's why this question's in, because I'm interested to know like what would you need, like for Drukhari or Chaos and War. It's just like, I want another big floaty Talos thing or a new tank. But like
actually, I have a perfect answer for this. I would love a centerpiece model. Because you've got all of because like AOS, every faction has their big centerpiece model.
Yeah,
you've got like the Necrons with the Silent King. Space
awesome.
Marines have Gilliman.
Yeah,
like, all this kind of stuff. I want Custodes to have that centerpiece model. I don't know what that would look like or what it possibly could be, but I want it.
Yeah, no, whatever that is, that's what everyone wants to do. Custodes. That's a great answer. So, if you had to be in the ranks of the Custodians but could not be a HQ, what would you be?
It doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter, because the point with Custodes is they do everything. Like, there is a reason why Trajan is one of the only HQs that gets the chapter tactic of the shield host that he's in.
Yeah.
Because he knows everything. So Custodes, their whole big thing is like, one day they can be a Custodian Guardian. The next day they can be a Terminator. They're a large Terminator. The next day they can be piloting a gunship. It doesn't really matter. They can just do all these things. It's very ad hoc. There's no real like static formations. They just like Custodes squads are called sodalities, and
Yeah.
essentially a sodality is just a group of custodians who are mates and decided to fight together for a purpose.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really turning me on to these custodians. They sound they sound so good.
They're amazing.
I have to put these harlequins away and get some custodians. Nope, that'll just be meta chasing at the moment. God, oh dear.
In a week, see how Eldari turn out.
Oh yeah, yeah. So if you could start a new army in 2022, and I know you, and I'm sure you've got many that you wanted to start over the years because of all these new models coming out. I mean, it's like with me that I jump around. Like before I even was going to start Drakari all those years ago, I literally had in my hand a Gene Stealer cult because I was like, these are cool. I've never had anything like this. And then I went for the weird boat people because they just looked a bit more evil, and I've come from chaos anyway, so it was just second nature. But what would be your army if you could start like, bang, here's an army? What would
Okay. I'll tell you what. I had this guy. I can't remember who. I think it was Winters. I was having a conversation with him, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, you've got to start." No, it was one of the other guys in DCTV, and the whole big thing about me is everyone takes the piss out of me all the time because I'm like a super Imperium loyalist fanboy. Because I've got my two big factions are two power armor like Imperium factions.
Yeah.
Like I like being okay. There are no good guys in 40k, but I like being the less bad guys, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think someone said to me like, you should do something like crazy and out there for your next army. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. So, and this has been in the planning for like a while now. The next army I'm going to do are going to be Night Lords.
I have Night Lords.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, I've got so many of them. Like I when I said I got 1 billion points of,
I was wondering what legion you picked.
Yeah, I've got a Legion of Khorne. I've got a Legion of like Tzeentch, where my Lord of Change is called Windface because I rolled it on the random generator, and that is what he got.
Windface.
Yeah. My first ever Chaos model was the old Be'lakor because I thought it was awesome. And I remember when I first job out of uni, that was my first paycheck I got. Well, I was just like, right, that's what I want. So
Nice.
I've got Night Lords. I've got so many Night Lords and Emperor's Children. They're my two legions.
This is the thing I actually also said. If I ever start a Horus Heresy army, it's going to be Emperor's Children, Loyalist Emperor's Children, because Fulgrim is my favorite Primarch.
He's cool, and the stories of
super
Fulgrim
cool.
are absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, like I will say genuinely, his Primarch novel, The Palatine Phoenix, is one of my favorite books I've ever read. Like my honestly, my favorite books ever are The Martian, Palatine Phoenix, Dune, and Cloud Atlas. Those are my favorite books. Oh, and Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. Like those are the best, my favorite 5 books I've ever read. And so yeah, like Fulgrim is up there for me. But
He is cool.
Go back to the Night Lords quickly, like, and so this is one of the reasons. Like, it's going back to painting a little bit.
Yeah.
I have in London a very, very, very talented hobby group that I'm part of, and it's often talked about in our group how like the level of hobby and painting is like so high. Like we have 4-5 commission painters in our group. Like one of them works for Siege.
That's so impressive.
It's mental. And so like we have a painting competition every couple of months called Player or Painter. And sorry, I know it's the end, but I'm going into a story tangent. And basically our friend Charles, who's Charmis 40k on Instagram, he like brought the whole group together, and it's called painting competition is called Player or Painter because we were all together, and Charles picked up one of Ed's models and looked at it and just went, "So Ed, you're more of a player than a painter then."
Whoa.
And like there was like dead silence for like a second, and then just everyone cracked up because like Charles Swiss is his second language. He didn't quite understand what he was saying, and he was like, "Oh no, sorry, that's not what I meant." And so we named our painting competition in the club Player or Painter or Pop, and it got to the point where we were just like, right, we actually kind of do have to have 2 separate categories of players and painters, because otherwise it's just not fair.
Oh god. Oh,
And so yeah, and so like the level of hobby is so high, it really pushes me. And like also because I'm such close friends with Silver Paints, um, she is so good at pushing boundaries. And I look at her, I look at Katie from Tabletop Tactics, another good friend of mine, like my friends who are commission painters, and I'm just like, okay, they're doing that thing. I've got to push. I've got to do this. And so I've decided for the Night Lords, they're going to be full non-metallic metal.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, full non-metallic metal.
wow.
All the lightning freehand, and airbrush highlights or wet blend highlights for all the bits that have the lightning as well. So
That's
it's gonna be a mental project. I'm probably gonna paint 5 this year, but that's the goal.
Oh, that's cool. I'm so pleased you said Night Lords as well, because they have just been crying in the like their storage, like waiting to hit the table, and I love them. They're absolutely amazing. Like even like when I paint
Yeah.
my tanks, I put like the lining all the way across the tanks, and they look great. They look
Oh
great.
yeah. I
Oh
mean, this might sound like a stupid question, but have you read the Night Lords Omnibus by Aaron Dempsey Bowden?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
what a set of
yeah,
stories! Like
yeah.
it's so frustrating because like that kept on going through like the DZTV WhatsApp group. People kept saying Night Lords Omnibus is amazing. Night Lords Omnibus is amazing. I kept on hearing it from so many people, and I didn't read it for ages because I was just like,
Ah.
oh, I don't want to be like one of those people that just reads it and like says to everyone like, oh my god, read it. Like jumps on the bandwagon. No, no, it's actually amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's as good as everyone says, and it's really frustrating to have to admit that.
Well, I can't wait to see these Night Lords, because they will be painted very well, and I'm sure they're not going to be blasted by like airbrushes like how I would do it. But no, Quipster, thank you so much for coming on to this little podcast of mine and having a chat with me about 40k. I've already learned a lot from your painting tips, and it's nice to hear so much about your hobby and like your enthusiasm for your army, which is rare to see, because a lot of people just don't really take that much time and effort into the allure of the actual army, which I love. Um, so what's next for you? What's going on with you? This is your time to kind of say where people can find you.
Okay, so let's plug all the things. Oh god, I do so many things. So I'm on the Conclave podcast with the rest of my guys. I also have a YouTube channel that's just called QuipsterNerd on YouTube. I'm going to be posting a lot more videos on there soon, especially to do with essentially like I've got a couple of friends who are beginners getting into the game, and it's like the content I want them to be able to see. So like how to build your first army. I've got a painting tutorial on there for my friend Raf, which is very funny, and everyone should go watch that. So I'm going to be posting a lot more there. I also have another podcast I do over on deploymentzone.tv called the Fireside Chat, where I sit down with people in the community, and we talk about different issues. It's I'm not gonna lie, the Fireside Chat is fucking wild. We have talked about some absolutely like horrendous stuff on there. Like I
Oh,
remember, do you know who Brapscallion is
no.
from DZTV? He's one of the regulars, and we ended up talking about our favorite categories of porn on Reddit in the middle of a podcast. I On a slightly more serious note, I just had Jake from Vanguard Tactics on there, and we were talking about his the issues he's had with addiction, and how getting back into the 40k community has really helped him. I've talked to Winters as well on there about his ongoing depression and like his journey in the hobby. He's a fascinating guy. And oh yeah, on a wild different tangent to that, I'm also in another podcast I've just started recently with some friends called the Black Library Book Club.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and so that is just a book club where we sit down and we talk about books in the Black Library. We're currently going through the Horus Heresy, and we're on book 2. So I think that's most of the thing. Oh yeah, and you can find me on Instagram at QuipsterNerd. That is all the things.
That is a list. Like,
Oh God, tell me about it.
you do so much. How do you keep time of this? Spreadsheets.
I don't know. Just everything goes in the calendar, and I try and do as much as I can.
Yeah. So I'll put all the links in the description below. And please, everyone, please go follow Quipster and everything he does, like, subscribe, and everything like that. And for me as well, please, a lot of you watch this and don't hit the subscribe or like. Please leave me a like, little comment, hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in.